TG Tutorials.
I'm reliable. Hey guys, it's Matt here, and today I'm bringing you another episode of TG Tutorials. So, if you guys are either long-term fans, newer fans that have tuned into a few other things on the channel, or you're tuning in for the first time, you might notice that things are kind of dark around here. Now, they're not always this dark. The reason why they're this dark is because we're actually doing our Halloween in July editions of TG Tutorials. So, we do Halloween in July every year, but we don't usually do the TG Tutorials around this time of year, but I thought, why are we going to deprive you guys of some good old-fashioned knowledge? So, as you guys can tell from the title of the video, today I'll be teaching you how to take your Sega Saturn and record footage from that using your Elgato. Also want to mention, talk to me in the comments below and guess who I am cosplaying. I'm actually cosplaying as potentially a certain character, or you can guess multiple characters, and maybe you'll be right, because I kind of don't know. But I do know that I have a black trench coat, might be from a certain organization. And either way, please comment below. Would love to hear some of your guesses, because I could be anybody or nobody. Aha! Don't click out of the video, please. It would be nice if you stayed to learn how to record that footage. Let me show you actually right now what you need to record the footage in the first place.
And the first thing you'll need is a Sega Saturn. Now, I can't tell you how much this will cost because you could be buying this in-box, out-of-box, with manuals, with controllers, with power cables, depending on the year you're buying it, the day, the week, the minute, the hour. I can't give you an exact amount, but I will say that it would probably be best to be paying under $100. And you're also going to need AV cables. Now, I know this one might seem like a definite dumb moment to some of you, but I would like to say that these AV cables are exclusively for the Sega Saturn. So when it comes to these AV cables, these aren't like the power cord for the Sega Saturn, or like the AV cables for the Nintendo, either Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, as well as the Nintendo GameCube as well, or even like PS1, PS2 cables as well. A lot of those work for multiple platforms, multiple systems, but when it comes to these cables, these are exclusively for the Sega Saturn. So you might be getting them OEM, i.e. the original run that Sega created, or getting third-party AV cables as well if they do exist, which is why I can't give you an exact price for this either. And you'll also need an Elgato Game Capture as well, which I know is kind of a dumb moment, but still, it's always good to mention just in case. Also need an HDMI cable as well. Most likely have one lying around, but if you don't, definitely try to pick one up. And also want to mention that you should probably get this brand new. Now, I know that might seem like I'm getting some kind of, kickback or something like that, but the reason why I'm saying this is because there are certain cables that come exclusively with the Elgato that you could try to get secondhand. You could potentially even get off of Elgato's main website, but just to save you the money and save you the hassle, depending on where you're getting this on the secondhand market, I would suggest trying to get one either brand new or trying to do your research and make sure that you're getting everything included with the package itself. I got mine secondhand, so mine was around $100, but I did make sure that everything that I needed was included with that with the box, because it came pretty much complete in box. You're also going to need a mini USB cable as well. However, if you are buying the Elgato brand new, it should be packaged in with the system. Now, if you do get the Elgato by itself, i.e. no boxes, no manuals, no cords, no bells and whistles, nothing, just the Elgato itself, then you're going to need this cord. And the reason why, as you can plainly see, you're going to need it so that you can plug in the AV cables into your Elgato. If you're getting this separately, it should cost around $5 to $10.
Alright, so now that you know what you need, let me show you exactly how to do it.
Alright, so you're going to want to pick up your Sega Saturn, turn it around, and as you can see, that is the AV slot right there. Now again, I know for some of you you're thinking, I know where the AV port is, I know where the slot is, I know exactly how to put in the AV cable, but there is a big difference between some other consoles that are out there on the market. So when I was a kid, I had the Super Nintendo, I had the PS1, so when I actually plugged in AV cables, it was very easy. You kind of heard a click, and it felt like everything was just right. Here, you're not really going to hear that click, so you definitely have to be a bit gentle while also being a bit firm. It's a strange combination that I definitely just want to inform you guys about so you don't end up jamming it in there and potentially harming your Sega Saturn's AV port. And now let's look at the Elgato. First, let's turn the system around. As you can see, there's an AV import and an HDMI import. The AV import is what we're going to be focusing on today, and that's where you plug in that AV cable converter that I mentioned earlier. Now turn the system around, and this is where you need the HDMI cable, because you actually need to plug in that HDMI cable into the out section, and then plug the other side of the HDMI cable into your television or monitor. And as you can see right here, this is where you plug in that mini USB cable that I mentioned earlier, and then the other side of the mini USB cable will be plugged into your either computer, laptop, whatever you're using to run the Elgato software. Speaking of the program, to download it, go to www.elgato.com/en/gaming downloads. Thankfully, it's a free program, and for the purposes of this tutorial, we will be getting Game Capture for Windows. And after installing the program, click on this icon right here to open it up. And if you've set everything up correctly, your screen should look just like this. But maybe for some reason it doesn't have the game that you're playing on or the menu or anything like that. Maybe it says no signal or there's some black screen right here instead of whatever game you're running. Well, then let's go over here to settings and let's see what the problem might be. Now let's do a quick rundown here. Your input device should say other. There's a bunch of other options, but of course none of these are what you're using here. You're using other. In this case, your Sega Saturn. Now we could go to more info as well, but that takes you to Internet Explorer or to whatever your browser default is, and I don't think we need to see any more info right now. Now we could go over here to video input, and it's actually set to composite because that's what we're using right now. Yes, the HDMI is going into your television or monitor, whatever it may be, but remember that originally we're using composite cables, so we're actually using composite and nothing else. Potentially that's your problem, or what you might need to do is turn it back to composite, like do another setting like HDMI and then back to composite. Maybe for some reason there's just some error with your computer trying to read everything correctly, so that might be what you need to do. Your audio is automatically set to analog regardless. Maybe there's an issue with your profile. I have mine set to standard because this computer isn't the best, so I'd rather just leave it at standard. Also, we are playing a game that is very old, or playing games on the Saturn that are usually very old, so basically we're not going to need to have this in prime HD or anything like that. Same thing with the quality. I have it here, not all the way up to best. Really, that depends on what your computer can handle. If your computer can handle it all the way to best without any graphical glitches or anything like that, then you do you. But personally, I have mine right here because my computer kind of ends up glitching out if I try to play any either Saturn games or really any other game that's better than a simple Super Nintendo game or Sega Genesis game on anything higher than this right here, which is a little bit better than better, but not as good as best. Cropping, I really don't use cropping or anything like that, overscan, anything like that. I just suggest if you need to, change anything, just do it in your video editing software of choice. I use Adobe Premiere Pro CS6, but whatever you use, I'm sure you'll be able to fix any issues there. Same thing with converting to standard definition. I just don't want to muddy any waters. Same thing with stretch standard definition input. The reason why is because technically you could argue the Elgato is upscaling, if you will, so I don't want there to be any issues when changing from one menu to another, especially trying to play games that require you to be quick on your feet. Sometimes there's different different resolutions depending on whether or not you're in a menu versus during your standard gameplay. So I would suggest just leaving everything as is. Now going over to picture, same thing with the brightness and everything like that. If you guys saw my tutorial where I showed you guys how to connect your Sega Saturn to your Roxio Game Capture HD Pro, it is a similar situation where if you turn up the brightness, the internal, it's an overlay or an overscan. It basically, it's an overlay, essentially a front light instead of a backlight. So personally, I would suggest just resetting the default, leaving it. Oh no, what has happened here? I think resetting the default may have, so that just caused it to have a little bit of an issue. But yeah, so I suggest resetting to default. And if you need to fix, it does look a little dark. If you need to fix any of the, the brightness, contrast, saturation, hue, anything like that, do it in your video editing software of choice. Do it in post. It'll be easier to do it in post-production rather than trying to get rid of it when you've recorded God knows how much footage yourself. So going to audio over here. Again, whatever works for you, whatever works for your setup. I usually end up muting my audio in post anyway, but if you're doing a live stream or something like that, I would just suggest doing whatever is good for you. I don't really see why profiles are needed, but they're here. I guess maybe if there's other people that are using your Elgato, again, I'm not sure myself. And if there's any flickering, because it can happen, I've seen it happen before, not with my setup, but it might happen with yours, definitely use this to your advantage if you need to. Your television should not be either fading to black or flickering, so definitely if that's an issue, then, if that was an issue, then this might be the solution to that issue. Now, that's a little bit of a, okay, there we go. So yeah, so it's clearly having a little bit of issues here and there. But let's scroll down here because I do want to show you guys a few more interesting things. Live commentary. Although, yeah, so live commentary, that works when you're either, streaming, doing a live stream on Twitch or something like that, but also it could work while you're recording the video game footage as well. So definitely pick whatever mic you're using. I'm using the Yeti, but I'm not going to choose that because it'll have some weird kind of conflict because I'm actually recording this using open broadcast software with my Yeti. So I'm not going to choose Yeti myself. And also make sure you don't have your mic muted either. Of course, you have this on, automatically reduce game sound. You can do it again, whatever is good for your setup, whatever you want to do personally. Scrolling down here, you can see that the video title is set to My Great Capture, My Great Game. Frankly, I just leave it at this. I don't leave it like this. I don't really change it. The reason why is because I can just change it to whatever I want to once I'm done with it. I don't want there to be a situation where I think that, one thing is footage for this game, but really it ends up being for that other game or something like that, because it won't change the name of the file every time you save a new one. So personally, I would just rather leave it as is and change it, whenever I'm done recording the file. Let's move down a little bit more. We can see, there's just tags, descriptions, things like that, things that I really just don't add myself. This is the big giant red record button. I can imagine you know what it does. So there's that. Also, green is for streaming, and then that is for commentary. That does matter because, like I said earlier, when you're recording game footage, it's just recording footage, but if you click this blue button right here, then it'll record your commentary over it. So edit over here doesn't really do much. As you can tell, it just opens up what was last recorded. Well, now you have a look into what I've last recorded. But other than that, there's not really much you can do here. I don't really use any of this myself. And now that we're done with this part of the video, let's jump back to me in front of the shelf.
Alright guys, so that about wraps up this episode of TG Tutorials, and please remember to like and subscribe if you liked the video, and if you didn't like the video, you can still like and subscribe either way. Thank you all so much for watching, and please tune in next week for something a little bit, maybe even more spoopy. Alright guys, so take care and see you next time.